Let's create some real-life campaigns and ad groups. And I'm going to show you how to structure your account, how to name your campaigns, name your ad groups, how to organize them, and then also what settings to choose in your campaigns for the best results. So this right here is still kind of the default page in your AdWords account, which you'll see only before you create any campaigns. So once we create a campaign, this page here is going to go away. Now, I often, when I create campaigns for clients or when my team creates campaigns for clients, we use Google's tool called the Google AdWords Editor, and that's an offline tool from which you can upload campaigns into this user interface here. You probably won't need to use that if you're just going to be running a couple campaigns for your business. So although I will talk more about the AdWords Editor later on in a different lecture, for the purposes of this lecture today, I am just going to use the user interface here to create campaigns. So I'm going to ignore this option up here, this button, create your first campaign, because that's more of a guided scenario. And I'm going to be your guide right now. So I'm going to come down here to start creating advanced campaigns. And I'm going to click on that, and let's get started. All right, so we're ready to create our first campaign. And the first option that we have is how to name our campaign. Now, actually, before I name it, I'm going to choose what type of campaign to use, because if I choose a different type than the default here, Google's going to erase whatever name I put in there, and I'll have to pick a new one again anyway. So the default option that Google gives me is Search Network with Display Select. And if you remember from previous lecture, I do not like this type of campaign and do not recommend it. So I'm going to click here. And for the purposes of this today, we're going to do a search network only campaign. And remember, this type of campaign is the bread and butter campaign for most AdWords advertisers. The big exception to that is e-commerce websites, which also need Google Shopping campaigns, and we'll talk more about that later. So I've selected a search network only campaign, and you can see there's different options over here for different things. I'm going to select an all features campaign, which means I have the most options to optimize this campaign as possible. And there's no downside to doing that compared to using a standard campaign, so just always use all features. And then I'm going to name the campaign. Now, what should you name your campaign? First of all, your campaign name has no bearing upon the actual performance of your ads. Google does not care what you name your campaigns. It's purely for internal uses only on your end. So that said, you do want to name your campaigns logically and consistently just to make it easier for you when you're doing reporting and making changes so you can understand where you're spending your money and what is inside of each campaign. So for this campaign, for all the campaigns I'm going to build today, I'm going to use the example of our umbrella selling website. And I'm going to build a couple campaigns. First, let's build just a general campaign for people who are specifically looking to buy or purchase umbrellas online. So I'm going to call this campaign Buy Umbrellas. You could name it campaign number 1 if you wanted to. There's no problem with that, but it does get a little challenging to understand what is actually inside the campaign if you start having campaign number 1, number 2, number 3, and so on. All right, so our next option, choose networks. Now, this is a search network only campaign, so it's by default, it's in the Google Search Network, which is just the normal google.com properties that you think of. Then we could also either include or exclude search partners. Search Partners is a network of third-party search engines and websites that Google works with. It includes places like ask.com, and you'll often see you can get onto other search engines online and see ads served on there, and those are actually served by Google. Typically, there's not a lot of traffic on the Search Partner network, but often I see pretty good results from a CPC standpoint or a CPA standpoint for our clients. So by default, I typically do include search partners in our campaigns. And if we see any issues with that, we can easily go back later and just hit that checkbox again to turn that off. So there's not a big risk that we're taking by doing that. Then let's move down. Devices, ads will show on all eligible devices by default. They're talking about computers, tablets, and smartphones. And we can talk more later about if you don't want your ads to show on smartphones, what you can do about that. Then we'll select a location. What location do we want to target? And they have a couple predetermined options here, or we could target pretty much anything by typing into this box here. For this campaign, let's just target the United States, and then for another campaign, I'll show you how to target a more granular location using this box in advanced search. Next, we have this expandable option here, location options. So you've got a couple of different options here for targeting. You can target people who are searching for or showing interest in your targeted location. You can target people who are just in your targeted location, or people who are searching for, interested in your targeted location, but are not in your targeted location. So what's the difference there? Well, first of all, this top option is going to get you the most traffic. So for example, let's say that we're targeting California, and we use this option. Well, if Google sees that someone recently has been searching a lot about California, or maybe they just left a web page about California, and then they type in how to buy umbrellas online, Google may show them the ad, even though we're not specifically targeting them. Say they live in Ohio. Google thinks that they're interested in California, so they show them the ad. Then this option here is more targeted. You change it to people, you only target people who are in California in that scenario. And then here, this third option is helpful for example, travel sites, where you want to target people who aren't in a particular location, but who may be going there, or who may be interested in that location. Typically, I choose this top option, people searching for, showing interest in. It just depends on what your strategy is or what you want to do, but those are your options. And then here you have the same idea, but for excluding locations. And excluding locations is mostly relevant if, for example, we targeted the United States, but there was a specific state or states, for example, Alaska and Hawaii. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and add them as excluded locations right now, because we don't want to ship to Alaska and Hawaii. So I'm going to open that up and type Alaska in and hit exclude. And you can see it shows that red option over there. And then Hawaii, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to exclude Hawaii. And then I'm going to include the United States, or add. There we go. So you can see this blue area shows what you are targeting, and this red area within or inside the blue area shows you what we're not targeting. Let's go ahead and click done there to save that. And then I'm going to change my exclusion option down here to people in my excluded location, because I don't care if someone in California is interested in Alaska. They're still relevant to see my ads. I only want to exclude people who actually are inside of Alaska and Hawaii in this scenario. And let's move down here to languages. You can select what language you want to do. Typically, just English is fine. If you wanted to have other languages, you could click edit and then do all languages there, or pick specific languages that you want to target. Then let's talk about bid strategy. Typically, I do manual bidding, which I'll explain more about later. So I'm just going to select that option. I'll manually set my bids for clicks. And just off the bat, I'm going to set a default bid of $1. We'll probably change that in the future, but that's just a good default option for now. And then budget. What budget do we want? And again, budget is something you can change whenever you want. It is a daily budget, so Google looks at the budget you set on a daily basis. And also what Google does is they allow themselves some room to go a little bit over your budget if they see opportunity there. Specifically 20%, they can serve 20%, or they can spend 20% more than your daily budget on any given day. And what they try to work out is that over a month, they try to basically hit your daily budget extrapolated across a month. So if you had a $100 daily budget, they assume that your monthly budget is basically it's 30.4 times your daily budget. And they try to spend your money per day to hit that monthly amount. Now, obviously, if you change your daily budget throughout the month, that resets their data. So just watch your daily budgets and set it wherever you want it to be. For this instance, I'm just going to go ahead and set it to $100 per day. Then for delivery method, let's click that option here. There are two delivery methods for your ads. You can do standard, which means that Google will try to show your ads evenly throughout the hours of the day, or accelerated shows your ads as quickly as possible each time there's a relevant search term. So if you are limited by budget, if there's more search traffic out there than you can pay for, your ads might run out earlier in the day. For example, by 12 noon, you might be done for the day because you don't have a high enough budget to pay for all the traffic that you could get. So if you're limited by budget, typically you'll want to choose standard. If you're not limited by budget, choose accelerated. And I'm going to go ahead and choose accelerated for now. Then down here, there's some different options for ad extensions. Don't worry about these on this page here. We can add them all later on when it's easier to add them, and we don't need to select any of these right now. So schedule, we could set a start date and end date for the campaign. Start date is just automatically going to be today. End date is just whenever you want it to end. Typically, you do not need an end date because you can just pause your account manually whenever you need to, and don't worry about an end date. We could also create a custom schedule for hours and days of the week. So if you don't want to show your ads during certain hours, for example, non-business hours or on the weekends, then you can tell Google exactly when to show your ads here. And this is going to be based upon your time zone, which in this case is Central Time or Chicago time. And remember, that's something you can't change. So it's another reason why it's important to select the right time zone initially when you create your campaign or your account. Then we also have an ad delivery ad rotation option. And there are 4 different ways you can rotate your ads if you have multiple ads per ad group, which is something I do recommend so that you can test your ad copy and see what performs best. So their 4 options are to optimize for clicks. So Google shows the ads expected to provide more clicks. You can optimize for conversions. You can rotate your ads evenly and then have Google optimize them after at least 90 days. Or you can rotate them indefinitely so that you manually pick which ones are winning and which ones are losing. Now, there's a lot of different opinions about which one is the best to choose, but here's something that I've found. Google tends to make a decision to optimize which ad to show too quickly. In other words, they don't wait for enough data to be collected before making a decision, and that can adversely affect your ads, and it can actually show your lower performing ads more often. So what I typically like to do is to rotate the ads indefinitely, and I wait until we have enough data to determine a statistical significance for one ad winning compared to another. And then I pause the losing ad, and I take what I learned about the winning ad to test new ad copy accordingly. So let's choose rotate indefinitely. Dynamic search ads, don't worry about that. That's a pretty advanced feature, which we're not going to cover here. And then campaign URL options. That is only if you want to add UTM parameters to your URLs, so you can track some advanced stuff. And it's typically not something you need to do unless you've got some advanced stuff going on. So we'll skip that and hit save and continue.